Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. In this presentation, we will continue with Unit 3 on the utilization of the national textbooks and teachers' manuals. The module that I will be presenting to you is Module 3-6 titled Lesson Design in the Teachers' Manuals, focusing on mathematics. This module has 3 lectures with an activity or exercise at the end of each lecture. The training objectives of these modules are as follows. By the end of this module, the participants will be able to explain how the objectives, prior knowledge, preparation, lesson flow, and assessment are related in the mathematics lessons. Number 2, to explain steps of the lesson flow in mathematics lessons. And number 3, describe how students are assessed, considering knowledge and understanding, skills, value and attitude, mathematical thinking during and after the lesson in formative and summative ways. Let's have a little contest before we proceed with the lectures. In this contest, we would like to find out who has a beautiful voice. 2 to 3 participants should sing short songs such as the first part of the national anthem. After singing, the trainer will give marks, and also participants will be able to express how they feel about the assessment. Let us now observe a short video of how this contest was conducted.
I'm going to ask 3 volunteers, not 3 participants. Maybe I will select 3 participants. We're going to do a little activity, and the activity is to find out who has a beautiful voice. Okay, so at the end of this activity, we're going to assess 3 people, okay, who has a beautiful voice. That's what we're going to find out after the singing takes place. You don't have to. We're going to sing the first part of the national anthem. One from Laguna, one from Koyari, and one from Toki. Just the first verse only.
Let the sing of our joys to be free, praising God and rejoicing to be.
Okay, we had our contestants here. Okay, I gave them marks based on their performance. I gave John 5 marks because he was very loud and clear. Are you listening to how I gave him marks? He was very loud and clear. I gave Iva 3 because she was loud at the beginning, but towards the end she lost the volume. Right? And Susie, I gave her 3 also because of stopping and then starting again. Okay, did you hear how I judged each of those people? Yes? Okay. All right. Can someone tell me what was wrong with the way I assessed the singing? Yes.
The students are not given the written criteria to see and prepare themselves.
Excellent. Good. Anything else?
You assist only one part of the which is the foundation.
Very good. Okay, let's go back to the screen. What does the competition say? Who has a beautiful voice? Did I assess based on how beautiful they sound? Yes or no? did not assess based on how beautiful they sang. If I was to assess how beautiful they sang, probably they would, all would have scored 4 or 5 based on how they sang. Okay? But my assessment was not based on the objective of this contest, which was to find out which voice was beautiful. But I assessed based on loudness and how they perform. It also applies when we are teaching our lessons also. And your objective when you're teaching also, by the end of your lesson, you must make sure that you are achieving your objective. Also in terms of assessment as well. You assess based on what the objective is asking you.
Welcome back. Did you notice how the assessment was done? Good. The purpose of this activity is that the assessment and its criteria must be consistent. The same also applies to teaching. All aspects of teaching should be consistent with the objectives set. Let us now look at Lecture 1, which outlines the linkage among the objectives, prior knowledge, preparation, the flow of the lesson, and assessment. The unit introduction pages of Teacher's Manual explain the objectives of the unit and the linkage of objectives among subunits and linkage of contents across grades. For example, in the unit of addition and subtraction, the unit objectives are indicated as follows. Now, there are 4 viewpoints of objectives which are considered, such as knowledge, understanding skills, mathematical thinking, and interest, motivation, and attitude. All 4 areas should be considered to teach during lessons, and all 4 areas should be assessed as much as possible. In the example shown on the Grade 4 Chapter 12 area, we have the unit objective listed as 1. Bullet point 1, to understand the meaning of unit and measurement of area and how to calculate. Second bullet, to understand square centimeter, square meter, and square kilometer. To think about how to calculate square and rectangles. To understand and apply the formula of area for finding the area. And also to understand the unit of acres and hectares. All in all, unit objectives are related to the description in the syllabus that are stated in the brackets. Let us now look at a sample of a teaching overview for area to see how the unit objectives and subunit objectives are related. In the teaching overview, students have the fundamental ideas of area by direct comparison of papers or paving the same tiles or papers in grade 1 and 2. In this unit, students are to be introduced to universal units to capture areas to compare indirectly. Under this unit, or under this overview, the subunit 1 on area, the students study the meaning of area and measuring area. Firstly, they quantify areas using the same tiles. They then quantify the area using tiles of 1 centimeter squares and also learn that areas are not changed even though the shape gets cut off and put on another part in regard to conservation of area. In the next subunit 2, area of rectangles and squares, the formula should be found and understood through enough experimental experiences such that they struggle to find out the number of 1 centimeter squares without dropping or skipping. Teachers should not just give the formula. If they learn any formula without knowing the reasons, they cannot easily recall them. In subunit 3, unit for large area, the students learn square meters, square kilometers, acres, and hectares, and their relationships. Since it is difficult for us to remember how to convert areas to another unit, visualization of conversion will be so effective for students to remember and recall it. Students will also know what units are used for, example, field, parks, gardens, classrooms, a province, and etc. Generally, unit objectives and subunit objectives are directly related. Let's take a look at how contents are related by studying the linkage of related content flow in the previous and coming grades regarding the unit to be taught. For example, in the unit of area, the unit objectives are indicated as follows. In regard to related learning contents, we can see that area is spread across the grade from the first grade right up to the 6th grade. In the first grade, in the study of area, direct comparison of sizes of the areas is done by measuring with arbitrary units. Then moving on to grade 4 or 4th grade, the concept of area and measurement is understood with the units of area such as square centimeters, square meter, acres, hectares and square kilometers, and the relationship of the units, and also formulas to find the areas of rectangles and squares. In the 5th grade, students learn how to find the area of parallelogram, triangle, trapezoid, rhombus, and the formulas, which moves on to grade 6 in calculation of area, on how to find the area of circles and its formula, and also estimating the area. Related units in this case are linked, and there is an important need of prior knowledge of previous grade for students to progress well in this unit, or to learn more about a specific content. It is necessary that students should have fair prior knowledge in order for them to progress smoothly with what is to be learned. Let's study a sample of the general layout of the teacher's manual to identify the objectives, prior knowledge, lesson flow, and assessment. Look at the teacher's manual of grade 4 unit 12 on the area lesson number 81. Here it shows this general layout of the teacher's manual. You can see how the content of the manual is laid out with the unit objectives, subunit objectives, lesson objectives, prior knowledge, preparation, assessment, the lesson flow, and also the blackboard sample. Now that you have seen the composition of the teacher's manual, let us now go through each component to understand the linkage between each of the components using the lesson on area as an example. The lesson objective is think about how to compare area and to express the area of using arbitrary units. To achieve this lesson objective, teacher makes sure that students know the study of area in grade 1, direct comparison of quantities, and comparing quantities using arbitrary units as prior knowledge. The blocks in preparation box are required materials to be utilized in the lesson. The teacher should consider the aspect of assessment as well, where it says think about how to compare the sizes of shapes. Understand the meaning of area in advance, which is consistent with lesson objectives. Lesson flow is described as a step-by-step instruction to achieve the objectives of the lesson. In general, the lesson objectives, assessment, and lesson flow are consistent. To conduct the lesson successfully, make sure that preparation of materials is done in advance and that students are ready for the next lesson with necessary prior knowledge. Now you have an exercise to do. For your exercise, think about the assessment if you need to teach the lesson for the following objectives. For grade 3 unit 8 on circles and spheres, we have 3. To understand the definition, nature and the relation of elements of circles. Next bullet, to draw circles of given sizes by using instruments, and to think about the nature and properties of circles based on the operations of folding and overlapping. Take time to think about the assessment if you were to teach the lessons for each of these objectives. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the exercise and your presentations. We will now move on to Lecture 2 on the steps of the lesson flow in the mathematics lessons. In the mathematics lessons, the 3 parts of the mathematics lessons consist of 1. The introduction and review, 2. The body or the development, and 3, a summary. There is no specific time allocation for each part of the lesson. Teachers are encouraged to manage the time considering the lesson flow and the nature of tasks and activities in the lesson. For example, the introduction of the lesson will not always be review, but may begin with a problem or a task. Let's go through the 3 main parts of the mathematics lesson flow in the teacher's manuals, starting with the introduction or the review. In the introduction and review, the teacher confirms the concepts of previous lesson which links to the lesson contents. Also, the teacher introduces new topics related to prior knowledge or daily life of students to make them motivated and be interested. In doing so, students are interested in which one is larger, for example, in the study of area of comparison and reviewing direct comparison of area. The next part of the mathematics lesson flow is the development of the lesson, or sometimes referred to as the body of the lesson. In the body or the development of the lesson, there are 2 main approaches taken to teach. The details of each approach will be explained in Module 3-8. They are 1. Conceptual understanding through problem-solving approach. An example can be seen there in Task 1, where the students get to solve problems. And 2. Mastering skills through exercises, which can be observed in Task 4 indicated on the screen. The third and final part of the mathematics lesson flow in the manual is the summary. In the summary, students obtain the key concepts of the lesson in summary part through solving the tasks in development part of the lesson. Students also can explain what they have learned in the lesson in the summary part. And finally, in the summary, students can also consolidate their skills through doing exercises. Examples of such have been displayed. To conclude Lecture 2, you will now do this simple exercise using the teacher's manual. For your exercise, look at the lesson flow of Grade 4, Unit 7, Subunit Division by 2-digit numbers. Lesson 1, and identify the following. 1. Introduction and review. 2. Development. And 3. Summary and exercises. You can now begin to identify these 3 important or main parts of the lesson flow. Well, I hope you managed to identify the 3 main parts of the mathematics lesson flow with ease. We will now continue on to the last lecture for this module, which is focused on assessment as part of the lesson design of the teacher's manual. In assessment, the first type of assessment is formative assessment. It is also known as classroom assessment and is an ongoing process and interaction between teacher and students. It is used to help students improve their performance, skills, or understand the tasks better. It also helps both students and teachers to see where they need to improve and how to improve. For example, on the unit of area, we can see on the teacher's manual where assessment has been indicated. It is also indicated whether it is formative or summative, and briefly explain the purpose of formative assessment in this lesson. Let's take a look at an example of a formative type of assessment. In formative assessment, exercises in the body part of lessons are also items for formative assessment. Students can learn concepts or mastering skills through solving these exercises. For example, what is the area in square centimeters of these shapes? This kind of exercises or activities can be utilized as formative assessment. The next assessment type included in the lesson design of the teacher's manual is summative assessment. In summative assessment, or which is better known as assessment of learning, is the use of a task or an activity to measure, record, and report on a student's level of achievement in regards to specific learning objectives. These are often known as assessment of learning. Here in the example, similar to that of formative assessment, assessment is clearly indicated in the teacher's manual and is symbolized with S with the purpose of this kind of assessment in the lesson. Here are some examples of summative assessment. In summative assessment, the exercises at the end of the lesson and the unit are also items for summative assessment. Teacher can use and assess the achievement of students by utilizing these exercises. For example, making a rectangle with an area of 50 square centimeters if its width is 10 centimeters and finding what the length is, or a test that can be given at the end of the unit. Let us now take a look at how the teacher's manuals are meaningfully designed in linking the objectives with the assessment. With the objectives and assessment, unit objectives and lesson objectives are consistent with the assessment in both formative ways and summative ways. For example, in grade 4 chapter 12 on area, a unit objective reads as 1. To understand the meaning of unit and measurement of area and how to calculate, which is linked to the lesson objective in 1, 2, and 3. 1 reads, to understand the unit square centimeters and find the area using the unit. To understand the shape changes but area does not. And 3, to draw various shapes with same area. Both the unit objective and the lesson objective are also linked to the assessment in the teacher's guides and also the teacher's manuals in both formative and summative assessment. For example, in formative assessment it reads, understand the unit square centimeters and find the area using the unit prior knowledge. And in summative assessment, to draw different shapes with same area in square centimeters. More details of this will be explained in Module 3-7. To end this lecture, you will now do an exercise using assessment tasks or activities. For your exercise, look at the following assessment items in the Teacher's Manual, Grade 4, Unit 7, Subunit Division by Two-Digit Numbers 1, Lesson 1, and identify which of the following are formative and which of them are summative. A. Understand how to calculate two-digit number divided by two-digit numbers, which are equal to one-digit number. B. Become interested in explaining how to express the process of a given situation of division by two-digit numbers. C. Do exercises correctly at the end of the lesson. D. To understand how different ideas from their learned knowledge can be applied to calculate the problem. And E. To think about how to divide by two-digit numbers. Look at the following items, then identify which of them are formative and which of them are summative. Welcome back. To conclude this module, let's briefly summarize what we covered in the 3 lectures. In our summary, 1. Objectives, lesson flow, and assessment are consistent. Prior knowledge and preparation are necessary before each lesson. Number 2. Mathematics lesson flow consists of 3 main parts. 1. The introduction and review. 2. The body or the development. And 3. Summary and the exercises. And number 3. The assessment applies both formative and summative ways, considering the key areas of unit objectives. The tools for both types of assessment are in the teacher's manuals. With that, thank you all for your participation and viewing, and happy teaching.